James Gunn is back at it again, finally, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, this is the end of a trilogy, a much beloved trilogy with all these loved characters. They're all back. How did he do? How did he finish it all out? My review is coming up next, but first, go into the description and click on that link for a free fantasy ebook. Download that ebook, and remember to like and follow and share and all that fun stuff. Now, let's get to it. Welcome back to Great Stories Change the World, the YouTube channel where we look at stories where a science fiction fantasy author, that's me, goes over some different movies and books and TV shows and gives recommendations based on what makes a great story. And I do believe that great stories make a great impact and change things and change our views and our perspectives. And so I want to help us tell great stories. Now, today we're going to be going over Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I saw it this past week, and I wanted to give some thoughts today because this is a well-beloved series of movies, right? And it's been a while since the second movie came out, and there's been Endgame, and there's been all these other things that have happened, Thor, Love and Thunder, and we're finally getting back to this cast of characters with James Gunn. Now, with most of you guys, I was probably like you. I didn't know the Guardians of the Galaxy that well. So when Marvel announced that they were making a movie in the beginning with Guardians of the Galaxy, I was like, who? And it was just seemed to come out of nowhere. And I really wasn't sure how that was going to work out. And like most of you, I just went to see it and I was blown away. I loved that first movie. I loved the second movie. And James Gunn really established himself as a filmmaker. He established himself as this guy who can kind of do this quirky cast of characters and superhero, this kind of new version of a superhero movie. And it really worked. And Marvel has just cashed in on it as much as they could. And they brought the Guardians into other properties like the Endgame and even the Avengers sort of stories. But when we're looking at this, now we're looking at kind of the end of the trilogy. And, there's been some time in between because James Gunn got in trouble with some things that happened a while ago. And Marvel kind of canceled him a little bit. More than a little bit. They kind of fired him and they made all this sort of trouble and drama between some of the cast who were like, well, look, we're not coming back unless James Gunn is coming back because he's a secret. This is kind of his baby. This is definitely his vision and these are his characters, at least his take on these characters. And the way he put this thing together with the music and the visuals and the action and the comedy, just how it all worked together, just it's his baby and it just works, right? In a way that's unique and we all love it. So finally, after kind of messing around with, are we going to bring James Gunn back or not? And there's time went on. And of course, he went on to DC and did stuff with them, with the Suicide Squad. But I still think the Guardians of the Galaxy is the best stuff that he does. I know he likes to kind of go over the top and do the rated R stuff. And a lot of people do like that with him and think he's funny. But I think the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff is the best stuff overall. So we're going to be going over this end of the trilogy. So here's kind of the setup. I'm going to try to give as few spoilers as I can because I know it just came out, so some of you maybe haven't watched it. But as you go to watch it, I want to kind of point out some things. So if you're a writer or if you just love good stories, these are some things that maybe you can look at while you're watching the movie if you haven't seen it yet, or if you have and you want to watch it again, or you can think back on it if you've seen it, right? So here's the setup, is that in the beginning, they're in nowhere, which we kind of get a good look at with the Christmas special, which I kind of enjoyed, and Kevin Bacon and all that stuff. And so we see that there's kind of this new Guardians of the Galaxy, and after all the Endgame stuff, and we've got the dog, and it's fun, right? There's some fun little moments right there in the beginning. And so coming into it all is a new character, which, you just have to this probably isn't a spoiler, but Adam Warlock comes in, and we've kind of known that that was going to be something that happened ever since Volume 2 and at the end of Volume 2 and all that stuff. So Adam Warlock comes in and just trying to get Rocket, right? Rocket, the raccoon. And of course, he's repelled by the Guardians of the Galaxy. He kind of decimates the Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit. And all of this happens kind of early, and essentially the setup is that Rocket gets injured and they can't save him because whoever did the experiments on him had some sort of fail-safe in there that would kill him if anyone tried to mess with their handiwork or something. And so now comes the journey of the movie, which is how do we save Rocket? He's our friend. And what this sets up is an opportunity for them to go on an adventure and go to these new places and try to do different things and different goals. But it also gives us a chance to see some of Rocket's backstory. So here's some of the strengths of this movie is that these characters are well established by now. And that's a good and a bad thing, right? So you don't really have to take a lot of time establishing the characters. You just got to have them interact and have fun with it. And because they're different and we know the differences and when we can kind of play with it. And so James Gunn does a great job with that in the beginning. Strong characters, very well established. Now, the problem with strong characters is where do you take them and grow them? How do you get them to have some sort of character change in the third movie, and not even just the third movie. This is what, fourth or fifth, because we've seen these characters in other Marvel properties as well. And so, but the characters are strong, the interactions are strong, it's funny, and that's a great thing about this movie. And the other great thing is they go into Rocket's backstory. Now, a lot of people have talked about this online. A lot of my friends have even posted about it after they've seen it, that it's a little disturbing. It's not horrible. It's not like a horror movie sort of disturbing, but it's pretty disturbing when you're experimenting on animals. And we know that's part of the Rocket's backstory. But here's the tricky thing with going into Rocket's backstory. So as a writer, you got to be careful with mystery. So you love mystery. Like, we want to bring up mystery in our characters and in the story because it activates people's imagination and their curiosity and makes them want to keep watching or reading. But after so long with Rocket's mysterious past, you really have to nail this as a writer. You have to nail his backstory to give us something of value that at least lives up to our imagination. Now, of course, it may not live up and it may not be what we imagine, but at least it has to live up to that sort of imagination. And so I think a strength of this movie is that James Gunn did that, is that this is a tricky thing and he managed to do it, right? So it also brings up sort of Rocket's need for community and desire for community and where he kind of gets that from. And it implies, it never really says it, but it almost implies that Rocket is just as, responsible for making the Guardians of the Galaxy the kind of family that they are. I love the new old Gamora thing. So this journey kind of brings her into the fold, and we'll get to some of the sort of problems that the movie has here in a bit. But with Gamora, she's just a great character. She's a great actress. And, she doesn't want to have anything to do with Quill. And there's that conflict. And we see that with Endgame and all that. But here we are where she's kind of being brought into the journey and into the goal and the mission and all of this stuff. She's been with the Ravagers. And so it's fun. And here we go. She's in. And so this sort of dynamic, the conflict is good. It's a good tension. It's a good conflict. And what you see is that she really doesn't want anything to do romantically or just in any way with any of them. But through the movie, as she sees them interact as a family, it does start to kind of change her, the sort of show don't tell attitude of the movie. And I thought that was really well done. I thought that there was some growth in some of the other characters, and they're minor by this point, but you got to have it, right? You got to have some growth in characters like Mantis and Drax and some of these other people. Groot, not as much. They just kind of do some different things with him, and it's cool. But so some of the character growth and some of these other guys and the superheroes was pretty cool. I also love that they brought in Nathan Fillion. So I'm not going to tell you who he is, but Nathan Fillion, I am a huge Firefly fan. I might do a video at one point on Firefly and the great things about Firefly, the show and the movie Serenity. But anyway, to see him in this was amazing. The music was cool. James Gunn went in a little bit of a different direction with the music. It's more 90s than 80s. And so I thought that was really kind of interesting. I wasn't as into some of the music. I didn't think it fit as well, but some of it really did. So I really like that. Now, before we get into the ending, there were a couple problems with the movie. So is it as good as any movie has been since Endgame? This is what I keep seeing on Facebook. It's the best Marvel movie since Endgame. And I guess technically it is, since the Sony Marvel Spider-Man movies aren't technically just Marvel. But if we include the Disney Marvel kind of umbrella with the Spider-Man movies, I'm going to say No Way Home is still a better movie overall, though it had at least a couple problems. And it's definitely a better trilogy overall. Those Spider-Man movies of Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, that was a better trilogy. The Guardians of the Galaxy isn't really a trilogy. There are 3 movies, and he brings it to an end, but it's not really one story. As much as the Spider-Man movies are 3 separate movies in their own right, with 3 separate villains and all that sort of stuff, or different villains, then so they have their separation, but you can tell Marvel or Sony or whoever was kind of organizing those Spider-Man movies, they had kind of an idea of where they were going and what they were going to do with it. And whether that's Feige or whoever that was kind of dealing with that. So with Guardians of the Galaxy and James Gunn, you don't really get kind of a cohesive story in the sense of like there's a full arc through 3 movies for these characters. You get new characters and they kind of deal with some different things, and it's cool and it's really well done, but I would not put it above No Way Home. I still think No Way Home is a better movie overall, but it is one of the better ones. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is definitely one of the top 2 or 3 since Endgame. There haven't been some great movies. I thought Shang-Chi was really good, and obviously, like I said, No Way Home. This is up there, maybe right just below No Way Home as far as a great movie, right? So here's some issues with it. With the movie, it wasn't really strong on showing us and getting us to understand clearly and quickly what Quill's issue was. What's his issue? So we get it that he loves Gamora and he wants her back, but they were trying to get at something deeper along through the movie, and you don't really get there. You don't really nail it. I didn't think the movie nailed that. He's just kind of drinking at the beginning, and they're like, whatever, we'll deal with him. So, but okay, he's in pain, and they're trying to deal with it. But again, I think they could have done a better job establishing some of that with him. It wasn't bad. It was just I think they could have done a better job. The whole children and the cute animals at the end is a little manipulative, right? It's a little like over the top in the sense of like, ooh, how can we make them really great heroes? They have to save cute animals and children, And this is the second movie in like a year or two that Marvel has put kids in cages. Like this is a thing with them now, I guess. Like if we want to make sure that we know someone's evil, they put kids in cages, right? And I don't know how political that is, but it's a little, you got to be careful with tropes, with doing the same things over and over again. It's not creative. You're just trying to make a statement more than you are trying to tell a good story. And good stories is what actually change people's minds, instead of thinking, oh, well, how can we change their minds by just shoving something down their throat, even if it's might be the right thing. Like, obviously we don't want kids in cages, right? We don't want to hurt puppies. I get it, but you got to be careful with some of this, and I thought that was cool. There were a couple things that they did with the animals and the creatures that I thought was really cool. And I'm not going to give away some spoilers, but I thought with some of the creatures that they had, it was very interesting and very cool. A lot of the payoffs were predictable. And so this was a little bit of a problem for me. Now, I know I'm a writer, so maybe other people didn't see stuff coming, but I think they telegraphed a lot of the payoffs at the end when they set up the stuff they set up in the first 5-10 minutes. This kind of paid off at the end, and it was a little predictable. It doesn't make it bad. It just means like, oh yeah, I kind of knew that was going to happen. I knew they were going to have to realize that. I knew he was going to have to go see that guy, or whatever the thing was. It was a little predictable. But overall, I love this movie. I'm going to give this movie a B+, A-, somewhere in that realm. And again, the predictability sort of knocks it down a little bit for me. But the ending was awesome. The ending was great. A little bit of a callback ending, which could be lazy writing, but I thought it was interesting. I love the introduction of Adam Warlock, who was the actor who played Eustace, I believe, from one of the Narnia movies, but now he's older and a little more buff. And I thought it was interesting what they did with him. As far as he had probably the best character arc, and I think they actually could have done a better job with that, showing that in a couple of different ways. But I like what they did with that. I love the music. Nathan Fillion, some of the stuff that they had going on there was funny. The jokes, the timing, it was great. And I love the ending. I really did. As much as some of the payoffs were predictable, I did like where they ended up. And I'm not going to give it away, but I like where they kind of came to. I like the themes of, again, more of the themes of family, and what's the difference between revenge and redemption, all that sort of things. So definitely check this movie out if you haven't. And if you have, let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments. So go in the comments, let me know what you thought of the movie. What were some of your favorite things? Were there things you didn't like? Do you agree with me or not, right? I'm not perfect, so let me know what you thought. And remember to follow and click on that link and get my book and download that and get on my mailing list, because I've got 4 books coming out this year. I got a lot of books coming out this year, so I'd love to tell you more about my epic fantasy that's coming out in a few months, and I've got a children's book coming out later in the year, before Christmas, I hope. And so get on my mailing list, and so you can hear more about it. So I got more guests coming up soon, I hope. But until then, I hope you guys have a great weekend, a great week, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.